Hey guys, Brian from Peruvian Boas here. Well, the 2023 boa breeding season is really heating up with lots of intense locality boa breeding action going on right now. Today I'm going to give you guys an update on my 2023 boa breeding trials, and I'm going to focus on my most anticipated pairings for 2023. These are pairings I really am hoping are going to be successful, so be sure to stay tuned. So what makes these pairings particularly anticipated? Well, actually a number of things. So all but one of them I've never produced before. In addition, these tend to be types of boas that are harder to breed and they're more in demand. And so I like any litter that I have, I'm happy for. But when I am able to produce a type of boa I haven't produced before that's somewhat harder to breed and is in demand, that's always certainly a great thing. And in fact, I paired up all 5 of these pairings I'm going to talk about last year, and I wasn't successful at any of them. So hopefully we can change things this year and at least 1 or 2 of them will be successful. So first off, I just want to give you guys a brief recap. I've been at it since November. Me and actually the snakes have been at it, I should say. I started in November with a slight cooling at night, and then I paired up my pairs. They were paired all through November and December up until early January. This guy is kind of giving me a run for my money. Up until early January, at which time I separated them for about a week and fed them. And, you know, so far things look pretty good as far as the breeding. I had them together through most of January. I just separated them again, gave them another feeding, which is why I'm doing this video, because of course I don't want to separate pairs to do videos, but they're separated now, so I thought I'd show you some of my most anticipated pairings. And so things are looking pretty good so far. You know, I have at least a few gravid females I'm pretty confident about, which I'll probably talk more about in a future video. But right now there's still a lot unknown. I'm not quite sure you know, which boas are going to be gravid. If they are gravid, I can't guarantee any babies. But it's these unknown things that really keep boa breeding exciting. It's like you never know what you're going to get. And so to get to my most anticipated pairings, you probably guessed this is one of them right here. This is a Bolivian Amarali boa. This is actually from the Orange Crush bloodline, a bloodline founded by Joe Terry. And these guys have gotten really hard to find lately. I have only 1 pair of Amarali in my collection, and I've never bred them. They're actually a subspecies, and I have a goal to breed all of the subspecies of boas that are available. So this is actually the last one that I have on my list to breed, so it'd be great if these guys bred. It would just be kind of a bucket list item for me. And these I've actually paired up the last 2 years, and this is the male right here. I saw little activity the first 2 years. I'm more hopeful this year. This guy has definitely been courting the female. You know, whenever I look in the enclosure, the tails are wrapped together. This guy's definitely showing interest. You know, they've been together for a few months. I don't know if the female's gravid. I don't think she's gravid yet, but my fingers are definitely crossed this year for some Bolivian Amarali. And so this will be the 3rd year. Hopefully this isn't strike 3 on me, because unlike some of my other pairings, I only have 1 pair of Amarali. They're hard to get. I don't have any intention of adding any new boas to my collection, so if these guys don't breed, you know, that's about my only option for Amarali. So we'll just have to see. I'm hopeful that we're going to have some Orange Crush Bolivian Amarali sometime this summer. Now for the second highly anticipated boa breeding, and that is the Iquitos Peruvian True Red Tail, like this guy. This is one of my 2 males. I actually have a trio of these animals, which was supposed to be 2 females and a male, but turned out to be 2 males and a female, which is fine because I'm actually trying a multiple male approach this year, which so far seems to be working quite well. And having the 2 males is definitely an advantage. And so Iquitos Peruvian Boas are not a type of boa I have bred before. And I'm kind of cheating here because, as I mentioned in many of my other videos, I don't really consider Iquitos Peruvian Boas to be legitimately different from Paragua Peruvian Boas. However, I am keeping my animals separate based on what they were described to me as, and I have these 3 Iquitos Boas. In the past, I've bred the Paragua type. I haven't been super successful. I've had a few nice litters, but overall I've had quite a few misses. It's not like the Surinames where almost always when I pair them up I get a nice litter. The Peruvians have just been a little bit more challenging. And I actually attempted this pairing last year with just my other male and my female, and I wasn't successful. So I've got this guy in there this year, and he's been quite interested in the female, so hopeful that there's some activity gonna happen. But these are just really nice, beautiful golden Peruvian Boas. You can see this guy has these nice, blocky, somewhat slightly peaked saddles. Very muscular animal. These guys were farm bred, born back in 2016. And just a nice, very impressive, large, true red tail. You know, for somebody that really wants a top shelf boa, these guys are great. Probably not the best pet. You know, they're a little bit uptight, quite strong. You can see he's squeezing me quite a bit now, but definitely a very beautiful looking animal. And it's not hard to see why, for some locality boa collectors, the Peruvian true red tails are the #1 pick. So I should mention I also have a Paragua Peruvian pairing going on right now that I'm hopeful for, but we'll just have to see. As I mentioned, I've had not as much luck with these guys, but hopefully I'll have at least 1 litter of Peruvian true red tails in 2023. Next, we have another variety of true red tail that I haven't been successful breeding before, and this is the North Brazilian variety. And so I tried last year with my other pair. I have a pair that I got from Basically Boas, wasn't successful. This year I'm trying this pair that I got from Vin Russo, which is from Lemke Bloodlines. This is actually the male. He was born, I believe, in 2016. And you know, so far I'm not sure. I haven't really been following these guys that closely. Usually I don't interfere with my boas. I just put them together, let nature take its course. Sometimes I do see more activity. This pair, it's kind of hard to tell. It's kind of hit or miss. We'll just have to see. But it would be nice to produce some of these beautiful North Brazilian boas, since you see them less commonly available. And they do have a cult following. You know, some people really like these guys. I would say that they're kind of similar to the Guyana and Suriname, except the ground color is kind of more of a yellowish gray. The saddles typically are kind of irregular, but usually kind of peaked. And the tail usually isn't quite as long or red as the Suriname or Guyana, but they do have the bright red tail, synonymous with the red tail boas. And this guy's kind of tying me up in knots today. This guy actually just shed, so he's looking really nice. But you know, one thing I've noticed is a lot of my boas during breeding, they really start to look dingy, because you know, the males are on top of the females, and you're really courting, and you know, there's a lot of fluids exchanged, and sometimes it gets kind of messy. And so by this time, after a few months of doing this often, the animals look really dingy looking. So, you know, I think it's definitely a good idea to separate them every month, give them a week off, give them some food, give them some rest, because the breeding can really take a lot out of them, especially the males. You know, some of these guys are doing nothing but courting the females pretty much non-stop for months. So, you know, sometimes they lose interest in food. And in fact, you know, I just fed the animals. Some of them weren't interested, you know. Some of my males haven't eaten in a few months. Some of them finally took food after not eating for a couple months. Some of them have been eating all along. So, you know, some people don't feed during breeding. I think it's definitely a good idea to feed if your animal will eat. And I feed my gravid females also up until about, you know, 6 weeks before their due date. Don't want to feed them too close to the due date. But I think it's a good idea to get food inside of them just to kind of keep them going. And usually I'll feed a slightly smaller than normal size rodent. You know, I might give like a medium rat to a female that normally got a large rat. But, you know, that's worked quite well for me. That way when they have the babies, they're not all that thin. You know, they're thin, but they're not as thin as they would be had they not had the food to sustain them. Anyway, everyone does breeding differently, but let me know what works for you. But anyway, I hope to have some nice North Brazil red tails later this year. Fourth on the list of most anticipated pairings for 2023 is another boa that I haven't been successful for, and this is a really interesting locality boa that's kind of at the crossroads between the common boa and the true red tail, and that is the Paragua Peninsula Boa from northern Venezuela. So although these guys are classified as Boa Imperator, the common boa, they have a lot of the traits of the true red tails that occur not that much farther from the range of these guys. And so this is actually an anerythristic one. This one lacks the red pigments, which give it this beautiful silvery gray color. And I actually have a pair of the anerythristics and a pair of the wild type. I tried breeding the wild types last year, didn't have any luck. So what I'm doing this year is my anerythristics, but I'm using also my wild type male for a multiple male approach. So fingers crossed that that'll make it happen. So far, it looks like maybe something's been going on. You know, when I look inside of the enclosure, the males are often on top of the female, look like they're courting her. I don't see any obvious signs of any female being gravid yet, but it might just be a little too early. I'm not quite sure why I haven't been successful with these guys. You know, when I've talked to other breeders, it seems like these guys should be about the same difficulty as breeding other common boas. You know, they just put them together and they breed. I've talked to some other breeders who haven't had luck, so who knows. I think it's just the individual animals and, you know, the particular environment that's provided, you know, at the particular facility. A lot of this is just out of our control. You know, we set up the breedings and set up the conditions as best as we can based on, you know, what's written in the, you know, common knowledge about breeding boas, as well as our own personal experience, you know, which is usually a lot more valuable than what you read about in books and on the internet. But anyway, hopefully this year will be the year for these Paragua Peninsula Boas. Really cool type of locality boa. It's kind of a dwarf. This guy is about 4 feet long and he's pretty much full size. You know, has a lot going for it to recommend it as a pet, but still very uncommon and hard to find. So hopefully I'll have some of these beautiful Paragua Peninsula Boas available, you know, later this year. And this brings us to the last of the 5 highly anticipated boa breedings for 2023, and that is of course the Argentine Boa. And so unlike the previous 4, this is a type of boa I've been successful breeding previously, although it has been quite some time. These guys were actually the first type of boa that I bred back in 2005, my first litter, and so they always will have a special place in my heart. And I paired them up last year, wasn't successful. I actually used this guy. This is a Max Pink bloodline male. Not quite sure why it wasn't successful last year. He was very active at courting my female. So far, so it looks pretty good this year as well, but we'll just have to see. And so these guys, it's kind of interesting because back when I was first breeding boas, I had very little knowledge. There really wasn't much collective knowledge available. I didn't even know what a post-ovulation shed was. I didn't have any thermostats or any kind of specialized equipment. I basically just used kind of like a heat pad that I just plugged right into the wall. You know, it didn't really cycle. I just, you know, paired up my male and female and was successful. And then that was in 05. Didn't breed them in 06. 07, I wasn't even planning to breed. And I was cleaning the cages. And I happened to put my male in with my female just while I was cleaning his cage and kind of forgot about him for a few hours. And then I put him back in his clean cage. And that was all that it took because I had a litter in 2007. Literally my easiest litter I've ever had. You know, just put them together by accident for a few hours. Bada bing, bada boom, I got a nice litter of babies. Maybe that was just beginner's luck, you know, because I haven't been successful last year with these Argentines. Really would like to get them. You know, back when I first bred them, they weren't really that popular, but they've become super popular lately. Seems like everybody wants these, and it's not hard to understand why. They're just so beautiful to look at, and, you know, so enjoyable to interact with and handle. Just a great type of boa to keep. So we'll see, you know. The guy really has been active courting the female, and actually the other day I looked in and I saw that they were in full copulation. I saw his hemipenes. It was inserted into the female. You know, I always try not to disturb them as much as possible when I see this, because you don't want to ever have any damage happen to the hemipenes, you know, when the snakes have them out. But, you know, at least it looks like there was actual copulation. So, doesn't mean she's going to be gravid, but at least it's a good sign. So we'll have to see if 2023 brings any baby Argentine Boas here at Brian Boas. So anyway, this is some of my most anticipated pairings. I have a number of other pairings of animals I produced in the past, which I also would enjoy having. And, you know, I'll talk more about those in an upcoming episode. I plan to update you guys regularly as, you know, we get closer to the birthing season and I get my first babies on the ground, so be sure to stay tuned for that. You know, feel free to reach out to me with any comments or questions you have. If you have any insight on breeding, I'd always love to hear it in the tips, or in the comments rather. I'd love to hear your tips in the comments, so please write them below. It's also good for people watching the channel to see what works for you in your breeding trials. Anyway, thank you for watching and enjoy your boas.